Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Spellbook deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because we finally got Spellbook of Judgment back to 3 on the most recent list, putting this deck back at full power, which is super exciting. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name scratched for every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Spellbook Magician. This card is definitely a 3 of the deck. It's probably the best normal summon in the entire build, because when this card is normal summon or flip face up, you can add 1 Spellbook spell card from your deck to your hand, which is a really cool ability to add any of them that you need from your deck to your hand. We then play 2 copies of Ecclesia. Ecclesia is so good in this deck to be able to work with your copy of Maximus, but this card is amazing in this build, because if a monster special summons the extract is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if this card is normal or special summon, you can activate this effect to add a Dogmatica card from your deck to your hand, except for the copy of this card, which is such a cool ability to be able to add any of those cards that you need, like a copy of Maximus, or even your copy of Punishment from your deck to your hand. We then play 2 copies of Dogmatica Maximus. I feel like 2 is the perfect number for this card, because this card helps out so much, because we're playing so many targets in the extract to be able to use with our copy of Maximus. You can manage a Fusion, Synchro, Izzy, or Link monster from your graveyard to special summon this card from your hand, and during your main phase, you can activate this effect to send 2 monsters with different names from your extract to the graveyard. Also, your opponent sends 2 monsters from their extract to the graveyard, which is such a cool ability to be able to use with this card, especially to work with the Shadow package we're playing in this deck. We then play a single copy of Fleur-de-Lis. Fleur-de-Lis is definitely a one-of in the build, because this card can be searched off your copy of Ecclesia, and it's just an awesome hand trap overall in this build that you can summon to your side of the field. Plus, it's a spellcaster. We then play 2 copies of Jowgen. This card is definitely a 2-of in the build, and this card is what we usually summon off our copy of Judgment's ability. But this card is so good in the build because you discard a random card from your hand to the grave to destroy all special summon monsters on the field, and when it's on your side of the field, neither player can special summon monsters, essentially locking down your opponent, and this card is just crazy powerful. I love playing 2 copies of this card because the opponent never sees the second one coming, and it's just so good, and in playtesting, it's helped out a lot to play 2. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is just an overall fantastic hand trap just to stop the opponent from touching the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get in to the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is definitely a one-of in the build, just to stop your opponent from hand trapping you or you're going in for all of your plays. We then play a single copy of Spellbook of Power. Spellbook of Power is really good as a one-of in that it lets you target a face-up spellcaster type monster you control until the end phase. It gains 1,000 attack. Also, until the end phase, each time it destroys an opponent's monster in a battle, you can add a Spellbook spell card from your deck to your hand, which is a really cool ability about this card. We then play a single copy of Spellbook of the Master. This card lets you copy any of your Spellbook spells, which is so cool, because if you control a spellcaster type monster, you can reveal 1 other Spellbook card in your hand, and then target a Spellbook normal spell in your graveyard, except a copy of this card, and this card's effect becomes a targeted effect until the end of the turn, which is such a cool ability to be able to do, and it's just really cool to be able to copy your normal spells. We then play a single copy of Spellbook of Wisdom. Spellbook of Wisdom is almost like a Forbidden Lance, which is really nice. It lets you target a spellcaster type monster on the field and activate one of these effects, that the face-up monster is either unaffected by spells or unaffected by traps, which is great to be able to combine with cards like Imperm. When your opponent activates Imperm to be able to stop your copy of your Jowgen, you can just flip this card and stop Imperm, or cards like Book of Moon that they might basically try and flip it face down. You can just deal with it with Spellbook of Wisdom. We then play 3 copies of Spellbook of Secrets. Spellbook of Secrets is definitely a 3-of. This card lets you add a Spellbook spell card or Spellbook card from your deck to your hand, even being able to add your copy of your Spellbook Magician, which is so cool that this card is basically like the Rhoda for the deck. We then play 3 copies of Spellbook of Knowledge. Spellbook of Knowledge is amazing. This card is a draw card because it has to let you send to the graveyard either 1 spellcaster monster you control or 1 other Spellbook card from your hand or face up from your field, except a copy of this card. And if you do, draw 2 cards, but you can only activate this card once per turn. But being able to draw 2 is just really good in this build. We then play 3 copies of Spellbook of Fate. Spellbook of Fate is amazing for spot removing cards off the field, and this card really does everything. And if you control a spellcaster type monster, you can banish up to 3 Spellbook spell cards from your graveyard to apply the effects depending on the number of cards that you banish for this card's activation. If you only banish 1, you get to return 1 set spell or trap on the field back to the hand. If you banish 2, you change 1 monster on the field to face down defense position or face up attack. And if you banish 3, banish 1 card your opponent controls, and it doesn't target, which is absolutely crazy. We then play 3 copies of Spellbook of Judgment. It's finally back at 3, and this deck is at full power. This card is insane. And as he ability, during the end phase of the turn this card was activated, you add Spellbook spell cards from your deck to your hand, except Spellbook of Judgment, up to the number of spell cards activated this turn after this card's resolution. Then you can special summon from your deck 1 spellcaster type monster whose level is less than or equal to the number of cards added to your hand by this card's effect, which is amazing to be able to do with this card because you can summon out something like a copy of your Jowgen, which is super easy to activate that many spell cards to summon out this card because it's such a low level monster. Plus, this card is going to give you a bunch of searches for follow-up plays, which is just amazing. This card is such a powerful 3-of, and I'm so glad it's finally back at 3. We then play 3 copies of Nadir Servant. Nadir Servant is full combo in the deck, and this card is amazing to be able to search out your copy of Maximus. It lets you send a monster from your extract to the graveyard and then add 1 Dogmatica monster or Fallen Volbas from your deck or graveyard to your hand that has attack less than or equal to the monster sent to the graveyard, which is a really cool ability to use with this card. We then play 3 copies of Upstart Goblin, because I heard playing a 37 card deck is amazing, so we play the 3 copies of Upstart Goblin to make it a 40 card deck, which is so cool, and I absolutely love that Upstart Goblin is back at 3. I never thought I would see this card back at 3, but it's amazing in this deck because it's just such a good spell card to be able to use in this build. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to start off with 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Impermanence is definitely a 3-of to go along with our copies of Ash Blossom, because this card helps out a lot to basically just stop your opponent's monster effects and also lock down entire columns of spells and traps. We can play a single copy of Dogmatica Punishment. We can search this card. It helps us do a lot of stuff because we have a lot of targets in the extract to be able to use this card. It's going to get us a pop and either like a draw or a spin or anything that we really need in a situation, which is just really nice. We then finally play a single copy of Shadow Schism. Schism is just really good in this deck because it helps us make our copy of Winda during the opponent's turn. And this card is amazing to be able to use our copy of Maximus, because Maximus is basically going to get everything we need in the graveyard to be able to go off with our copy of Schism, because our copy of Apocalypse will actually search this card from our deck to our hand, which is amazing. And our copy of Maximus will get us the 2 targets we need in the graveyard to be able to use our copy of Schism, which is just so cool. So that's going to do it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with a single copy of Crowley. Crowley is a definite 1-of in the build, and this card helps out so much in the deck. Is that this card is Link Summon, you're going to reveal 3 Spellbook cards with different names from in your deck, and your opponent randomly picks 1 and adds it to your hand. Also shuffle the rest back in the deck, which is great to be able to get the exact card that you need. Plus, each turn, you can normal summon a level 5 or higher spellcaster monster without tributing, which is a really cool effect. We then play a single copy of the Tri-Brigade Arms. This card is really good to be able to send to the graveyard first off your copy of Punishment because it does have 3,500 attack, then sending a copy of Garua after it so you can draw a card, which is just really cool. We then play a single copy of Artemis. Artemis is just really good in this deck because it helps you get a monster on your side of the field so you can special summon out Ecclesia. We then play a single copy of Alamirage and a single copy of Secure Guard. Now, these are just really good in the build overall, and I really like these cards in the deck because you basically make your copy of Alamirage first, then you make your copy of Secure Guard. Now, by linking away the copy of Alamirage, which is just really easy to do. We then play 2 copies of Shadow Winda. Shadow Winda is amazing and super easy to make off your copy of Schism, which is just super cool to be able to do. Is this card has the ability that basically it must first be fusion summoned and cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and each player can only special summon monsters once per turn, which is just such a cool ability about this card that's going to lock down your opponent that much. And it's very easy to be able to make by sending a copy of Construct and your copy of your Winda to the graveyard, or a copy of Apokelon and your copy of Construct to the graveyard, which is just so easy to be able to do off your copy of Schism, and being able to search out your copy of your Schism off your copy of Apokelon, and then flipping Schism during the opponent's turn to make this card. We then play a single copy of Apokelon. Apokelon is really good in the deck as a one-of, because this card is just great to be able to search out your copy of your Schism, plus it gets your target in the graveyard, because this card is sent to the graveyard. You can add a shadow card from your deck or graveyard to your hand, then discard a card, which is great to be able to grab your copy of Schism, and it's basically the only card we're going to search off this card's effect. We then play a single copy of Construct. Construct is just a really good option that you can make or send to the graveyard off of Maximus with your copy of Apokelon if you want to be able to step into your copy of Winda. We then play a single copy of Titaniclad. Titaniclad is also a really good option to be able to use in this deck, because if this card was sent to the graveyard this turn, then you can actually add to your hand or special summon a Fallen Volbaz or Dogmatica monster from your deck to your side of the field, which is a great ability. We then play a single copy of Elder Emptiness. This card is great to be able to pop cards on the field with your copy of your Punishment, because it'll get you a double pop. Play a single copy of Gorilla. Gorilla is just really good to be able to send in the grave because it lets you draw a card. One copy of Cyframe Lord Omega, because it helps us recycle stuff. Golden Cloud Beast, because this card is amazing to be able to send, because if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can actually target a face-up card your opponent controls and return it back to the hand, which is great to use this card as a spin. And then finally, a single copy of Totally Awesome. Totally Awesome is great because if this card is sent to the graveyard, it has the ability that it can recover a water monster, which is such a cool ability about this card, because it just helps out so much to be able to do that, because it can help you grab back your copy of your Magician, which is such a cool ability, because if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a water monster in the grave and add it back to your hand, and your copy of your Magician is actually water, so you can grab it back with Toad's ability if it does touch the graveyard off of, say, like a Nadir, or your copy of your Punishment. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Spellbook before, now is the perfect time to play it, because we just got Judgment back to 3. Judgment being at 3 is insane, and it's so cool to finally see that card back at 3. So that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.